opportunity. Everybody.
Love that. Amazing. Patty, do you want to come over? Come off of mute for a second?
Sure. Yeah, I just posted. I'm like, I feel as though like the chaos of the world was driving me a little batty today, but I managed to stay focused and stay on track with the projects that I had going on. So I'm pretty proud of myself for that.
That's amazing, Patty. You are Superwoman. I love it. Sonia, why are you Superwoman?
Um, yep. Excited that I was able to make it to this meeting because I didn't think I was going to be able to make it with all of these things I was wrapping up at the end of the day. And I'm glad that I just said, you know what, I'm finishing up what I'm doing and I'm just going to log on and log in here. So I'm very proud of myself for that.
I'm proud of you too. So something I've learned is women always say yes to everyone else, but they rarely say yes to themselves. We have to invest in ourselves as leaders because no one else is going to. Thank you for showing up, Sonia, and it's been a pleasure to have you continuously here. What about Leslie? Why are you Superwoman today?
Yes, hello everybody. I think I'm Superwoman today. Well, it's going to be a hard one, but yeah, I guess showing up for this class, despite the current environment, showing up for this class and hoping to use the tools and implement the tools.
Amazing. Thank you, Leslie. Katie.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I think for me, in part, Leslie, because of the current environment, we had a celebration at work today for Dr. Martin Luther King's words, and just taking from his 1961 speech, the American Dream speech, um, and just taking the fight from his words, right? And
Mm.
helping to assuage some of my colleagues who have some concerns, right? And getting everyone riled up so that we can work on some new projects together in a healthy and constructive way.
Katie, I love that so much, especially especially I think I mentioned in another class, we have to have as leaders, we have to have grounded optimism, and a problem-solving head. And it's going to be easy to get dragged down into the mud in the next 4 years, and to feel like we're just in the sludge and there's no way out of the sludge, but then we're all stuck in the sludge. Somebody has to be willing to, put their hand in and say, I know a way out, and it might not be the best way, and we're going to get full of mud and it's going to be gross, but like I'm going to take you there. And it's not going to be perfect. And there's going to be things that are, casualties along the way. It's not, but I'm really happy that you're keeping that head on and then being a coach to your colleagues. It's wonderful. Michelle, is Michelle still here?
Yes, I'm still here. And this is the first one I've made in person.
Oh,
And so
great.
that's why
Excited to have
I've been
you.
meaning to the whole time. And I've watched most of them on demand. So really appreciate you making those available. It's, right at kiddos' bedtime. So I'll be going off camera in a
Okay.
while to handle that. But yeah, just with everything going on in the world, just glad to be able to show up.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, showing up is the big part of the battle right now. And
Step one.
step one, exactly. Is that did I get everyone? I think I got everyone. I was thinking about this. Obviously, this is, Trump has taken office, and we've already seen, a pause in humanitarian aid. Federal workers have to go back full time, which, is really bad for moms. We've seen pulling out of the World Health Organization, pulling out from the Paris Climate Treaty. What other fun stuff? Ending birthright citizenship, all sorts of things to, declaring an emergency at the southern border, the Remain in Mexico policy coming back. It is the pardoning of January 6th, which is, in complete abrogation of the rule of law, and of having any working system of justice, especially after serving on a jury and seeing, how long it takes to convict people and how much evidence you need. That's just a smack in the face to all the people that served on the juries and to the rule of law. I'm not going to pretend we're not up against things, but what's really struck me is how important it is, about to have feminist leaders right now. That this is not just about you, right? And choosing to step into your power is about stepping it's about being that light in the darkness of the next 4 years. It's about the future you're helping to shape for generations to come. And we are at this pivotal moment in history. We have an administration that has blatantly said, I think they've already ended DEI in the federal government, right? That it has blatantly put out an assault on any sort of minorities, women, people of color, immigrants, etc. And our rights are under siege as women too. And as we brace for the impacts of these regressive policies, like we really need leaders who can stand in the face of injustice. And it's not just about surviving, but thriving. Like we need women who can advocate for equity, whether it's in the boardroom, in the halls of Congress, in movements, in organizations. We need leaders who can stand up for their values, challenge these systems that oppress us, and build new ones that can serve us all. Yesterday we learned about the locus of control concept and this idea that it can feel really hopeless. It can feel like we can't do anything and it's too big for us to influence. But Mariana and Leslie and all of these change makers show that you still have power to create influence within your own locus of control. Yesterday, or was it yesterday when we talked about the ERA, all of these cities are adopting CEDAW on the local level, the Convention of the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women at the local level, and doing gender equity analyses like within their governments. There are things that you can do. And again, we can't get bogged down in the smog. So I really want to encourage you, like in the next year, to step into your power, because it's not the time to sit back. It's not the time to wait for someone else to rise. This is really your time. It's all of our time as women. It's time to lead. It's time to advocate. It's time to show up in your full power. It's time to resist. Which also leads me to my next point, which is we've been through so many aspects in the last 9 days. We've talked about your intrinsic power and getting rid of external validation as a litmus for your power and your confidence. We've talked about the system and what it is that we're up against. We've had change makers come in and tell their stories about creating change. We've learned how to utilize AI. We have, what else? We have learned about the Equal Rights Amendment and the trajectory of the Equal Rights Amendment. And there's so much more in the Women's Leadership Challenge that I teach, right? That was really only a small teaser of a very, very comprehensive curriculum where you get to be in community with women for 2.5 hours every other week and really dive deep and change over time. So I want to, congratulate the extraordinary women who have already stepped forward and scheduled calls with me about the Women's Leadership Challenge. Women who have said yes to their futures and yes to their dreams and yes to the impact they're here to make. And you all inspire me, and I cannot wait to see the legacy that you've created. And I want to congratulate the women that have already enrolled for the next cohort, like Patty, and have said yes to themselves and yes to their futures and yes to being the type of leader that we need. And I also want to speak to the women that haven't yet and have, qualms because of time, because of money. Maybe you're doubting it's the right time. Maybe you're questioning, am I ready? Maybe you're scared to invest in yourself. Investing in yourself is scary. Money is scary. But if you're watching these words, whether it's on the replay or now, I just want you to know that something deep inside of you already knows, like you're showing up here today because you are ready. You're ready. You're ready to step into your power as a feminist leader. It's really whether you're willing to bet on yourself to take the leap. It's whether you're willing, like I said before, to say yes to yourself, or is it always about saying yes to someone else? So for those of you who have not booked a call yet for the Women's Leadership Challenge, I encourage you to book a call with me. In the course, like I've spoken about, you'll find unshakable confidence. You'll master leadership skills for 2025 and beyond. And you'll join a global sisterhood. This program is not just about individual growth. It's really about collective power. You'll be part of a network of over 100 women leaders from 36 countries, fields as diverse as humanitarian aid, technology, defense, finance. They understand your challenges because all of them have faced it. And everyone is each other's champions. And we don't need leaders who conform to broken systems. We need women brave enough to challenge them. In the Women's Leadership Challenge, you'll learn how to lead with those feminist principles, foster inclusivity, advocate for equity in your organization and beyond. And thinking to the future, right, of I've really been trying to activate the alumni community and think about what do we do together to activate. I've done a couple things, like when Roe was overturned, I had a call and it was very cool. One woman had like a directory of all of these reproductive health organizations. And then she it was like a Google sheet, and she partnered with somebody who does websites, it's Tori actually, and they created a website on reproductive autonomy. So I really like fostering collaborative projects between current students and alumni to think about how do we leverage our collective power as women globally? How do we teach, like Leslie was saying the other day to, I can't remember who it was, like, oh, we need to talk because, I think it was Mariana, because like, the same systems that are, work in the education newspaper in Colombia, or the future newspaper, that could work in Bangladesh or in Haiti. We need to be able to have this exchange of ideas between us so that we can create that systemic change through transformative feminist networks. So in the next year, I really want you to think about, how do you step into the leader that you really want to be? And do you want to wait to invest in yourself? Do you want to come 5 years from now and go, crap, I wish I took the Women's Leadership Challenge 5 years ago because I'm in the same place I was then, and I really wish I wasn't that. So on that note, what I would like to do is talk a little bit more about your future with one of my all-star alums, Dominique Narciso. She is a high performance coach. She is a speaker. She is an author of Live Your New Story. She is a force to be reckoned with. She is a mom of two beautiful little girls. And I think of her when I think about having kids. I'm like, I need to take mom lessons from Dom. She's like mom of the year over here. And she's going to talk about vision casting and your future and how to step into your full power as a feminist leader. So I'll hand it over to you, Dom.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Samantha, for having me here. And congratulations to all of you that are coming in and taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen, to learn, to absorb the energy that Samantha, you're a rock star. Like, I met her a few years ago and I'm like, who is this person that is doing amazing work online, offline, speaking on stages? Just want to honor you, Samantha, as well, for being a leader in this space and really trailblazing. Like, I haven't seen feminist leadership written anywhere. I'm like, and there you are, leading the pack. So I just want to congratulate you on all the work that you've done with the WLC, and yeah, and where it's going to be going. So I wanted, for this particular session, what I would love to do is to really inspire all of you to start thinking and believing and envisioning your future desired identity. And when I say identity, I want you to think about, if you were to be 10 times better in every aspect of your life, who would that be? How would you show up as? What changes do you need to make to be that person? How committed do you have to be to become that person? And I share that with all of you because the type of world that we live in today, and I would argue the type of world that we lived in during the pandemic, it requires a different kind of human being. We cannot just accept what we have in front of us. We have to literally shape and shift the world in which we live in. And each and every one of us, we have the power, the internal power, and also the external power to do that if we become conscious leaders of our own lives and also conscious leaders of the lives in which we lead, be it in our families, be it in our communities, be it in our countries. And I just really want to really land in that word of identity, because vision casting a vision for your future, casting a vision for what you want to do, who you want to become, that requires an identity shift. Who you're going to be a year from now after doing the WLC, it's going to be different because you're going to be challenged in so many ways. The patterns in which you think I can't do this, I'm not enough, I don't know stuff about money, it scares me, or how can I get more people to support me? All of those beliefs that you have, that we all have as women, that will start to shift when you get in community with a person like Samantha, with a network like the Women's Leadership Challenge, because we're all searching and looking for that different kind of leadership. And it doesn't exist, in the mainstream, and you're literally creating it with each other. So thinking about that identity. Just really wanted to land in that first, because I'm gonna give you some questions to think about that further. But before we get into that, I want to give you a brief story about where I got to where I am, where I'm from, what I do, like who am I, all those great things. So my name is Dom. I am from Los Angeles, California. Thankfully, we're okay with the fires and everything. My spouse is a U.S. diplomat, and we've been living overseas for the past 8 years. I actually just landed in California a few weeks ago. And throughout that process of being married, having kids, I actually have 3 kids, so twin daughters and a little one.
Wait, when did you have a third?
I've always had 3. I just didn't want to interrupt you.
That's the memo. I'm sorry. 3. You really are
okay.
super mom.
All good, all good. It's been challenging to be a spouse, traveling overseas, not being able to do the work that I wanted to do because of challenges around work permits and just moving to different countries every few years. I've lived in Peru for 2 years. I've lived in South Korea. I've lived in Australia. And what this really forced me to do is to really ask myself, who do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do? What kind of mission do I want to serve? I doubted myself a lot, although I went to UCLA, went to Georgetown, I was working in the Senate, working, for NGOs, like doing all this great stuff. I was a Peace Corps volunteer, but deep down in my heart, I'm like, there must be something more for me. And I even became a diplomat for a year. I was like, let me try this diplomat thing. I tried it for a year, but I still kept going back to, there is something else for me. What is that? And I stayed in that level of curiosity. And so there was a moment during my time overseas, we had our 3rd child, and I was doing this vision casting for myself. I'm like, if I stay in the State Department, I know I can rise. I know I can do great things as a diplomat. But what does that mean for the family? What does that mean for the kids? What does that mean in terms of, like, what am I choosing and what am I not choosing? And, I spoke to my spouse, and thankfully, like, we have her income, like I was able to step out of that diplomatic career and really start to look into entrepreneurship. And it was in that moment where I decided to invest in myself. I invested thousands of dollars, never knew that I could do it outside of a degree at a big institution. I never thought about doing that, but I invested in myself. I got myself a coach. I got brave, and I started posting stuff. I started posting videos on Facebook. I started putting myself out there, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I just started sharing my knowledge, sharing my love for people, and also sharing my desire to help people achieve their goals. If there's anything I know how to do, give me a goal, I'll go achieve it. But the difference where I'm at now, it's not just about achievement. It's really about alignment. Am I aligned to the kind of person I want to be in the world? Because how many of you here, raise your hand, have been in achievement mode and like going after all these things and you're like tired? Or you feel like, you haven't spent time for yourself to really to rest and reflect and to shift into a different way of working, especially if you have kids. So shifted into entrepreneurship. I started my business in 2019 in South Korea, and it was like at the cusp of the pandemic. In the midst of all that, I was running workshops. I eventually wrote a book in 2020. The book is over here, but this is the name of the book: Live Your New Story, Discover Your Best Self, and Live Your Best Life. And it was really like, this book is literally about identity shifting. What can I do to myself? How can I think, feel, and act differently in order to be a different version of who I am, in order to be a better version of who I am? And through the process, I became a coach, got a lot of clients. I became a speaker, global speaker, different stages. And I became an author, podcast host, name all the different things, right? That we need to share our message. And the one thing I realized that really got me to this place of being an entrepreneur is learning how to embodying the mindset of an entrepreneurial person. How can I do the things that I'm scared of consistently? How can I ask for help consistently? How can I put myself in situations where I'm really uncomfortable consistently and say, it's going to be okay, I'm going to learn something from this? And through all of those years of challenging myself, I'm at a place where I'm really confident in my skill set because I built over time. I've built into the identity of being an entrepreneur. And so I share that as a brief story for all of you, because what is the identity you're building into? Because that desire that you have within, that intrinsic power that Samantha talks about, that can only be discovered by you. You're the only person that can let her out. And it's by saying yes. Yes to the discomfort. Yes to the, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to try it anyways. Yes to, I'm going to get support. But if you don't let that intrinsic power express itself, you will always be upset about something. There will always be a problem out there. We can't solve all these problems out there until we get really clear on what we're about, who we are, and how we want to express our true selves in the world. Not the, what is it? Not the, let me put a mask on because I want people to accept me, but to really express our true selves. What is that going to be like? And through the years of coaching clients and entrepreneurs and moms and dads, it's like everyone needs someone to believe in them, and everyone needs to be heard and to be listened to. We don't have those safe spaces like we did before. You have an opportunity as a leader to create those safe spaces now. And so when you're thinking about your vision for the next year, for the next 3 years, next 5 years, right? Don't wait until 5 years to sign up for the WLC. When you're thinking about your vision for the future, who do you want to be? Write it in the comments. Like, tell me right now, like, if when you're envisioning who you want to be in the future, describe her. Who is she? What is she about? What did she accomplish? What did she go after? Do you have a book in you? Do you want to write, like, do you want to become an author? Do you want to be a speaker? Do you want to have your own events? What do you want to do? Patty, love it. Still thinking about all that. Good. And now the challenge is just pick something. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is the thing with leadership and self-leadership. It doesn't have to be perfect. But the important thing is that you try. You attempt. You attempt to go become the thing that you want to become. Because for sure, in that attempt, you're going to become a different person, a different version of who you are. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't ask for all of those opportunities. Just straight up ask, hey, can I speak on your stage? This is what I would talk about. I wouldn't have those opportunities. I wouldn't be able to say I'm a global speaker. I'm going to pause there for a moment. I want you all to like really think about who you want to become in the future. What is the identity you want to grow into? Because this is going to be the stepping stone for the rest of the points that I want to make for all of you. Leslie, since your camera's on, I'm going to pick on you. Who do you want to be moving into the future?
Let's see. I just want to get into a leadership position in democracy and governance. So, I'm currently working on that. So we'll see how it goes.
Amazing. There you go. Leadership position in democracy and governance. What do you think is going to be your growth point to get there? What do you think you need to challenge yourself with in order to get to that position?
It's a very good question. That is a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. Yes.
So that's all good. Like, take the question, reflect on it. But this is the most important thing about vision casting and identity building, like building a new identity to fit that vision. You can't think for too long. We can't be in our heads for too long. You have to take action. You have to activate yourself. I think, Samantha, you were saying about like activating the network. You have, like, can you imagine if everyone was activated in their purpose? You can't just think about the purpose, you have to activate it. Michelle, Sonia, Patty, or Shiva, or Katie, how about you? What identity do you want to grow into? And then I'll challenge you, like, all right, how do you get there? Or like maybe a position or something that you've always wanted to do. Shiva's saying, hard to think of an entire identity, but I know I'd like to really move the needle forward for society in a positive systemic way. If that is too vague, if a more specific goal is better, one that I have is that I'd like to write a book, but I've been thinking about it for years and haven't gotten started right. Okay, this is good. A lot of us are change makers here. We have big vision for a big change in the world. But the change that it begins with you. If you are not changing yourself, you are not changing anything outside. That is a hard truth. You can go work for like the biggest organizations and go be making change out there, but you would be even more amplified. You'd be even more impactful if you're turned on. You're turned on by all the things that you care about, by all the things that you want to change in the world. When you're turned on, you would be much more impactful as a leader. And it's strategic. It's like the way that I have grown since the WLC. It's like I've always been good at relationship building, but it's not just random relationship building. It's strategic relationship building, because I know certain relationships will get me somewhere, will help me amplify the vision that I have for myself. I can't do it alone. So individual action, individual identity, challenging yourself to be a better version of who you want to be in the world, that's going to create a bigger change down the line. But it takes time. Changing your beliefs, changing your thought patterns, changing what you think is possible. I think a few years ago, I never thought that making $10,000 a month was possible. And now it's possible because I've grown into that identity and I've grown into the actions that it takes to earn that much money in a month. But if you asked me 5 years ago, Dom, can you go make $10,000 a month? Like, psh, I could never do that. That's too much. I'm scared of like way too much. But today, because I've grown in my mindset and also my heart set, how I feel about myself. It's not just about your thoughts, it's also about the feeling. That's when you start to, when they say like, you're manifesting things, it's because you become attractive. Your energy is just lighting up the room. I can go into a room, I can talk to anybody, I'm confident. If they don't like me, that's okay. I keep going. Rejection is part of my life. I'm okay with that. Because in order to be a leader, you're going to get rejected. In order to be a leader, people are going to push back on what you're saying. But that's why it's important to have a support group, which I didn't think about before. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go do it all by myself. And I'm like, no, I need to be around other people that are pushing for more change in the world. All right. Let's see what Katie has to say. I know what I want to be able to move into a position where I can protect and grow my team. I love mentoring them and seeing them grow themselves for me. I would need to make myself available to help guide them. Okay. Personally, I'd like to start writing creatively. Great. Amazing. I love that we have writers in the group. Ladies, start writing. It's as simple as getting your pen, getting your journal, and just start writing. Or if you want to go digital, start typing on that Google Doc. But that's where books start. They start with a word, right? And then many words after, many words later. Like, don't be afraid to express your true feelings, your true thoughts, your true identity, the kind of change that you want to see in the world. Because if you keep it stuck in here, it's just going to be stuck in there. No one's ever going to hear it. I mean, even as entrepreneurs, even as leaders, visibility is important. You cannot be impactful and influential if you're not willing to be visible. If you have all these thoughts and these ideas and you're hiding behind researching and you're not going to be able to be influential because people need to hear you, they need to see you, they need to feel you. And if you're not doing that, it's going to be really hard to be an impactful leader. All right. I'm going to pause there for a moment if anyone has questions, because I'm just going to keep going like this and shouting to the top of my voice, encouraging you all to have that identity, that vision for that different identity in the future. Michelle?
No, but I could jump in and just share that, one of the things that I am looking to do more of in a more kind of conscious way this year and going forward is really lifting up women in my network. And I think, although there have been opportunities to do that in kind of a one-off kind of a way, thinking about how to do that in a more holistic and, kind of community-minded way where people don't feel like, oh, okay, we're in this mentoring relationship for the short time, but then we're kind of dropping each other, but we're really kind of, championing each other going forward, I think would be really helpful. I am just coming out of a leadership role that was really challenging because, there was a narcissistic male CEO at the top who very clearly was threatened by females, has an all male, white male CEO board and leadership team aside from me, and working with it, trying to work within that toxic environment and protect the people that I was working with. And now being outside of it and realizing, okay, I need to really do more with this concept and this idea in the roles that I go into in the future. So that's one of the reasons I'm here, is because I think this is a really important thing to do.
And I love it, and good for you for standing up, right, and stepping out and taking on that leadership position, especially
it feels risky.
It's yeah, and it is. It
Yeah.
totally is. Everything is like, you have to be calculated, you have to be strategic, you have to use your political and social capital in ways that only you would know because you understand how an organization works.
Yeah.
But ultimately,
especially with all of the stuff going on at the top of
Yeah.
government these days, is like,
yeah. The one thing people can't take away from you is your belief in yourself. No one can take that away from you. If you build a solid belief in who you are, what you're here to do, people can be mean, people can throw you under the bus, people can do all these things. But if you just have this solid belief in who you are and what you have to offer, you're unstoppable. No one can phase you. You'll just go right through and be like, I'm on a mission. I'm here to make my difference. I'm here to support and protect my people. And so the thought or the concept around like identity building, when you build an identity and you choose to be that better, that higher leader with more capacity, with more skills, with more experience, with more network, when you choose to be that person, you have a whole like I don't know, I'm going military in my military metaphor, but like you have a whole army of people to support you. Can you imagine that? You just call up someone, you send a text to someone, hey, can you help me on this? And then boom, things happen. And so kudos to you, Michelle, for wanting to, be that person that uplifts in your network, because we all need it. Every person, every woman that I talk to that gets on calls and everything, it's like, Dom, like, you just create the space for us to breathe and for us to think and to believe and to dream. And so you can also be that person in your networks. So good. Patty says, I appreciate the need to be visible. Yes. Visibility is so key, is so important, foundational to your impact as a leader. And there are days like, I don't want to do a video or I don't want to get up, but I realize like every time I do a video, someone sends me a text, Tom, I really needed to hear what you had to say. And I'm like, good. And it makes me recommit to the mission, to the purpose that I have, that I'm serving through my business. Anyone else want to share just like, what's resonating with you, what's landing with you, or what you're challenged by as you're thinking about the future and as you're thinking about that identity you want to step into?
Dom, I think it's interesting as I'm thinking about this, right? I like this conceptual framework around identity, and that, I always say that men need to make more space at the table, but women need to take space, right? So it's a two-way street. But sometimes it's almost like we have to step into our mother's big high heels, right? Like it's like growing up. Like when you said, what do you want me to grow up, right? It's like stepping into our mother's heels, even though we don't really know how to walk in heels and we're gonna trip and fall, but like we're gonna step into them anyway. We're gonna put on our big girl clothes and dress up and walk around and flaunt and do stupid things, whatever, because even if we're not doing it quite right, and even if we're not there yet, and you and I have obviously had this bond of entrepreneurship and also being international development wonks, policy wonks, of just like this idea that I think so many women think, I have to have everything perfect. I have to have everything set. I can't put on that dress unless it fits perfectly, or those shoes unless they fit perfectly. I have to like wait for that right moment. And what I've learned too, like even starting the Women's Leadership Challenge, I had a framework, I had an idea. I sat on my butt for 6 months, like talking to people about it, and they're like, what do you think? What do you think? And then it took me, investing $15,000 in a program when I had no money to get my ass in gear and start serving women, and launch the program. And it wasn't perfect, right? And still, like, there's no such thing as perfect. So, and I think that identity too is can change, right? You can step into that bigger identity, and then you step into that identity. And then as you step into that, you go like, oh, actually, now that I'm here, now I realize that there's this other piece that's kind of missing. And now I want to grow and develop that, which is why, Leslie took my program, and, I've had alumni here who are still on this journey, right? They accomplished so much, developed so much, but as things come up, and I have this with executive coaching clients, somebody will, lose their job and we help them get a new job, but now they're managing a huge team and a failing company. And, we have to deal with all new challenges, right? Or there's a new president or whatever that is. So I think it's also, stepping in when you're not ready and just having faith, having people around you to support you when you're flailing around in the shoes and the too big dress, and also knowing that identity can and will shift, and being able to, and willing to embrace that as you go on your journey as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there. One of the challenges that I really faced in my life when we were living overseas was I had this identity of like, I'm an international development professional. This is a story I was telling myself. I want to work for like, big name organizations like the UN, USAID, like these big places. And when I was living in that narrative and my environment didn't have those opportunities, I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore because externally, the external things that I identified with were no longer available to me. And that's what, when I started writing this book, that's what resulted in this internal journey, my inner journey of like, who am I really? And what am I here to do? So that regardless of where I am in the world, like literally in the world, I can be myself unapologetically. And so, for a lot of you, when you're thinking about the future, think about, reflect on the past. Like, it's always good to reflect on the past, but also know that the story you're telling yourself about who you are, that can always shift. Who you are can change and evolve as you grow into these different skill sets and these different environments. And it could be scary, but it's also transformative when you start to allow yourself to let go of old stories that don't serve you and to step into new stories that do serve you or that excite you. There's a lot of people that get stuck in their careers like, Dom, I don't know what I want to do. And I'm like, well, what's exciting you? Go do the thing that brings you excitement. Like, don't do things that don't bring you excitement. It's that simple. But because we're creatures of comfort, we choose the thing that's comfortable because that's what we know. But growth and true growth and, growing into the person that you're meant to be, it's really, really, really uncomfortable because you're learning and you're being stretched in new ways that you haven't been before. So yeah.
And there's a neuroscientific pathway behind that, right? We've developed pathways in our brain where that are easier to access when we're in comfort mode. That's our, our autopilot. We've neuroscientifically, our brain is pushing us to stay in comfort. And also because we have survival, from an evolutionary perspective, we have survival genes of we have to survive. So, in order to form those new neural pathways, it's kind of uncomfortable because they take time. Like there's, research that habits take anywhere from 30 days to 6 months to form through repetition and behavior, which is again why the Women's Leadership Challenge is so long. I'm wondering, Dom, what was the contribution that you're obviously awesome, which I knew as soon as I met you. What contribution did the Women's Leadership Challenge have for you in terms of giving less fucks, finding your way, getting to where you are? How do you think it was useful for you?
The time that I came into the WLC, I was really trying to integrate who I was in the past and who I wanted to be in the future, because a piece of me was really missing the international development wonkiness, wonky dom. And I found that the community for the WLC, you were attracting so many different people from that space. And I wanted to reconnect with that aspect of myself. And I wanted to come at leadership and, women's rights and all of the things, but from a different angle, but also learning and seeing what were other people doing? How are they figuring it all out? Because I think there's, you don't really see a lot of stories out there of like, people really challenging these systems. And so, the WLC really gave me that community to learn from my cohort and to also contribute what I'm learning. And so in that way, that sense of community really helped ground me when I wasn't grounded in community, because I was living overseas and I didn't have like a community of people that I can speak to.
Yeah. And I think too, I appreciate that. and I think too, like, vis-a-vis Michelle's comment, a lot of women who come from male-dominated spaces or have dealt with a lot of bullshit find a lot of solace in the Women's Leadership Challenge community, because you can easily feel gaslit, or like, they're trying to cause you to doubt yourself or feel less than or feel less capable, or undercompensated, or whatever that is, or to push you out. And often it's helpful to have that reality check of other women being like, no, this is bullshit. This is not right. Like, this shouldn't be happening this way. And here's how you can step into your power and push back against this, versus just take it, or push back against it in a way that's strategic, that actually works, versus getting angry, right? Which is often our default. And anger is good when we use it strategically, but it's not good if it just becomes, makes us sick, right? And we just internalize that anger. And then with Patty and, like, narrowing options, well, Patty's already in the Women's Leadership Challenge next year. So Patty, you and I are going to do a lot on this. One of the things in the Women's Leadership Challenge that I do for you all now is a Finding Your Purpose coaching session. That's where I take you through a very powerful exercise by Johanna Barsh from Centered Leadership, with my flair on it, to really get you to ground yourself in what your life's purpose is, and conceptualize the legacy that you want to leave in the world, so that you can then start, and this goes back to Shiva's question, start activating that, right? It's not enough. Yes, you have to know your purpose first and figure out what is that first thing I want to focus on. But now what do I have to do to activate that? And to feel mobilized and motivated once you really figure out your true purpose. And also, Leslie Zafran, awesome alumni, she comes in and she does a mission and vision session, which you can either orient around your feminist change initiative, which could be, we talked about, like, around a social issue, or it can be around yourself. So it could be your mission and vision for your life, and how are you going to make that actionable, and what is that mission and vision for your life? And you end the Women's Leadership Challenge with a very clear mission statement of, I am a blank leader who seeks to do or is doing XXX for X community, so that you get really narrow and focused on your niche, your thought leadership angle, what you're speaking about when you get on that stage, or when you write your book, or write a blog, or whatever that is. What do you want to be known for, and what is really passionate? How do you figure out your purpose, Shiva? You sign up for the Women's Leadership Challenge. I mean, it's a long process. And I think, why I think it's been effective in the Women's Leadership Challenge is because I don't actually do that coaching session until about 6 or 7 modules in, once you've already been exposed to other women doing lots of cool stuff, and feminist leaders who have done things differently, and change makers. So you get that. I think you need that external inspiration to understand, like, what are all the avenues out there from a purpose perspective. And then there's the traditional model of, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what can you get paid for? That's called Ikagi, or what is it, Ikigai?
Ikigai.
Yeah, the Ikigai framework, which I think is also just, effective. But it's a long journey to figure that out. And often, again, it might shift in terms of what that purpose is. But I will say, like, it is important to I get a lot of women who don't know that, and go from job to job, which is fine, right? But eventually you're going to want to say, okay, what's that legacy I want to leave? Especially if you're in your last, you're in a leadership position already and you're entering that last stage of your career. It's like, what is that last purpose? If you're only going to be working for another 15, 20, 30 years, what do you want to make actionable? And often, and what I find too, and this is why coaching, I think, is so important. I have a coaching client now, and she came to me about looking for a job, and she wanted help with her resume and her LinkedIn and elevator pitches and interview prep and kind of traditional career stuff. And then I just, in one coaching session, we unveiled her larger purpose and what she's really passionate about and what she's really good at. And it has to do with reproductive care and maternal deserts and It's like the most amazing idea and purpose ever. And it's something the world really needs. But we had to uncover that through coaching. And you need people on your team to support and encourage you, to tell you like this, you're on the right track, or like you're not. And that goes to Patty's question too. Sometimes like you're not on the right track. You've got 10 things, and often, especially if you're an idealist like me, where I have a million ideas all the time of, oh, I want to create this, oh, I want to create this. Like sometimes you really do need a coach to just put you back on the track, be like, okay, these are all great, but like what I'm hearing from you as your coach is this is what's really giving you energy. This is what's driving you. This is where your passion lies. This is where your expertise is. This is what people come to talk to you about. This is the track that, I will never say you should take, but that I feel as your coach is calling to you. And I can hear that in the way that you talk and your voice, etc. So yeah, Dom, I'm not sure if you have any reflections on that too.
Yeah, it's people like make purpose like a really big thing, but it could be very simple. And it's what brings you the most joy when you're doing that function. Like for me, it's always been community and relationships. What can I do regardless of the environment? I could be running a business, I could be working for someone, I could be volunteering. What brings me the most joy there? It's community. And so regardless of where you're at, what's going to light you up? And to continue pursuing that. And sometimes you have to build skill around it, sometimes you don't, but it just depends on the degree in which you want that purpose to be present in your life. And yeah, but it's a long journey. It's also a short journey if you just say yes to yourself and what you really want to do and get really honest with how you want to show up in the world. And then that takes bravery, that takes a big step. Some people are ready for it, especially if they've experienced, incredible, changes or transitions or trauma in their life. And they're like, I'm ready to change. Whereas others, it can take a decade, it can take 5 years, 10 years to finally say yes. And just to throw in there, for those of you that want to write, like start writing, don't wait. That could lead you to what's next, to the next purpose that you have in your life, right? How you want to influence others through your writing.
And I think with writing too, a couple, someone mentioned writing a book, someone mentioned writing a blog. It is really hard to do that stuff without having accountability. I have a book coach because I know she's going to kick me in the butt and be like, Sam, where's your proposal? Like, where's this portion? Where's your hook? Where's your blah, blah, blah? I have a book coach, I have a business coach, I have this coach, I have therapist, right? Like we all need our teams behind us. I have a mastermind group. And what's been cool, I had one woman who came into my class who was a diplomat. She said, I think I lost my voice. And she really wanted to write a blog. And it took about 6 or 7 months. She finally wrote her first blog and she sent it to me and I edited it and I gave her feedback on it. And then she put it out there and she got feedback on it. And then, I saw her like 6 months ago and she has interviewed all of these women and she has this like very thriving blog. And it was really cool to see that. But sometimes you need a soft place to land, especially with that first writing. And it's a little scary if you haven't written before to just put stuff out there without getting some sort of feedback or vetting on it first. Because once it's out there, it is out there, right? It is out there in the world and you can't take it back. So you get yes to doing things imperfectly, but also knowing that women are judged more. So that's the other thing to know about writing. And the same thing for Kyle Lane Purcell. She came into the class. She wanted to write a book on sustainable investing. She co-wrote the draft in the Women's Leadership Challenge. She got feedback from her cohort. She got feedback from me. Finished a draft, got a publisher, her book's out. And then she joined the mastermind group. Now she's been on like 10 podcasts. So accountability is also really critical, and starting small and getting feedback, or else it's hard. It's hard to do stuff alone. And I don't think, and that's what I think, Dom, your message about community, right, is that we're social creatures. Like humans are social creatures. We thrive with one another. And yet so many women I see just trying to like, and I think it's this American idea of pick yourself up from your bootstraps and do it by yourself and self-sufficiency and I don't need anybody. And we do need other people. Like we do. We can't exist in solitude. it takes a village. Like I'm even in one of the chapters of my book, I'm really talking about the value of community and how we were sold this idea of the single family home as this answer to everything. And in a society that has crap childcare and crap elderly care, we really should be in community more. And there are these models now that are coming about where it's almost like a kibbutz where people are taking care of each other's kids, helping to take care of each other's parents. But we were sold this idea of the single family home and like living by yourself with your spouse and your kids as like the hallmark of success. And then a lot of women, because they end up doing the majority of the childcare, elderly care, housework, and have a full-time job, end up really being burdened by that. So I'm wondering, Dom, too, for anyone who's thinking about joining the Women's Leadership Challenge, but they might feel hesitant because of the financial investment, because of the time, because, is this the right time for them? What advice would you have for them?
It's anytime you make an investment, it's a personal decision. And if you're serious about getting support, like really serious about getting support this year, and you know that you can't do it by yourself, and you know you need to be around others that can give you the feedback and the accountability that Samantha was talking about just now. Imagine who you would be after the WLC is completed a year from now with all of that support. Imagine what you're gonna, maybe some of you would have a book written, right, and published, and 10 podcasts under your belt. Can you imagine that? Like, things can change so quick in a year if you choose. And so that's the call. It's, if you're willing to commit to yourself, to your dream, to the vision that you have for yourself, like, go for it. And if you're like, I'm not ready, I don't want to do this, take some time, but don't take too long. Like, people wait to write books for 10 years. I'm like, just write it already. Go do the thing already. Go take action. So anyone that's on the fence, you're going to be part of a global community. Like Samantha said, it's like I've never been, this is even better than my grad school program. I would argue, like, just in terms of my network, because we're all kind of like on this same page of wanting to create change in the spaces that we're in. So think, invest in yourself, like saying yes to yourself. That is the greatest gift you can ever give to yourself in this life, period. Just say yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dom. And Dom, I just want to thank you for coming, and just, if you could put a reaction in the reaction chat for Dom, because she's so inspiring. Um, you know, I just, yeah, and it's amazing seeing you come into yourself as well. Just like Katie asked me last night, like, what do I see in terms of the changes in people? And like, just you giving zero fucks, being so clear on who you are, being financially like, I'm making all this money and like, yes, I can do that. Speaking on all these global stages. I mean, it's just amazing to see how you've grown and where you've come in the, I guess, 2 years since I've known you, something like that. And I just like, I always feel like a proud mom. Like, you just like, yeah, like it's just, I'm in so many words of wisdom. And you're such an inspirational speaker and light to people. And I just want to thank you for being with us tonight, Dom.
Absolutely. And likewise, Samantha, you have grown so much and you continue to lead, at the helm. So kudos to you and congrats to having all these folks here on the call tonight. Everyone could be watching Netflix, but you're here. So, it's a true testament to your commitment to the mission and the work that you do. And I just love seeing people thrive and go after what they believe the world needs. So applause to you, Samantha.
Thank you, Dom. So I'll kind of give my little last spiel, and then I'm happy to stay and answer any questions. If you have any questions about the Women's Leadership Challenge moving forward, or any other questions, I'm happy to stay a little bit after, but I want to be respectful to people that do need to leave at 8. But I just want to kind of, some of the things that Dom said that I think are really important is that the Women's Leadership Challenge, it's like an accelerator. You might accomplish this thing, you might write your book, but it might be in 20 years, right? Or if you're in the Women's Leadership Challenge, it could be next year. Like, you might get to that leadership position that you really want, but it could take 5 years, or that salary bump that you want, it could take 5 years. But when you do the Women's Leadership Challenge, it takes 6 months, right? So it's almost like an accelerator. It's just pushing you way faster on this path to where you're meant to be, into this identity that Dom's talking about, of that identity, who is that bigger, bolder, more audacious change maker version of yourself. And like she said, things can change so quick in a year if you choose. So I hope that you've gotten so much out of our sessions together. And just to let you know, even if you don't decide to do the Women's Leadership Challenge and it's not right for you, that's okay. I'm still in your corner. Like, I am here to serve and to arm as many women as possible. But I also have finite time. And so the women who are in the challenge are my focus for the year, and who are in private coaching, in terms of amplifying as much as possible. And I know that you might have doubts and it can feel scary, but I also know that Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. So you have a week and a half left before application close on January 31st. Again, if you book your discovery call by tomorrow, you will get $1,000 off your tuition payment for the course if you pay in full, and access to my live public speaking class. So all you have to do is book your discovery call before then, and then you will get that extra $1,000 off the course and access to my public speaking class. After the 31st, I don't know that I'm doing more cohorts this year. I might do 2 in fall, but as of right now, I might just only do these 2. In terms of details, 2.5 hours every other week. Awesome women. You get to join this global community of people like Dom and Leslie and Beth and Mariana and Ivka and Garima, these just amazing change-making women who are all there in your corner to help you to get to the next stage. But like Dom also said, you're the only person who can say yes to yourself. I don't have to say, I don't get to say yes to you. You have to say yes to yourself. And the only thing that you have is that ability to say yes to yourself, and your belief in yourself that you can accelerate, that you can go down this journey. And that in 1 year from now, where could you be? Will you be standing in your power and leading with confidence and creating that impact you know that you're capable of? Or will you still be waiting and wishing that you had taken the leap? And furthermore, like, I want to reiterate, this is not just about you all. I always say, I don't just teach 8 women at a time. I teach 8 women who have a ripple effect on the rest of the world. Those are the women I take. So even if you book a discovery call, I'm also not guaranteeing I'm taking you into the program, because I want to see that you're at the caliber of the women that you've seen speak on these calls, or that I think that you have the potential to become one, because not all of them were there when they started. That's why they ended up in the Women's Leadership Challenge. So it's not guaranteed that I'm going to give you a spot in the program, but the fact that you've shown up here, and some of you have shown up here night after night after night, shows me that you have that commitment and that drive to be the feminist leader the world needs, and that you want to have an impact on the world. Like Sonia was saying, of mentoring other women, Michelle, like, of getting rid of these shitty patriarchal CEOs who are destroying things and are just full of ego. Patty, I'll see you soon. I think it was Sheba, finally writing that book. And what is the impact of that book going to be on the world? This is bigger than just you, right? This is not about just you. This is about the impact that you're going to have. And I care about you all as women, but the reason I did this course is because there's already programs that exist for women in corporate America to go build their, mansions and have their yachts and just go serve themselves. Like, I want to train women, and this is what I do, who have impact. And I want to help you amplify your impact by making you into the most badass version of yourself that you can possibly be. So on that note, I'll drop my Calendly in the chat. If you're feeling inspired to book a call for the Women's Leadership Challenge, please do so. If you feel like you're not ready yet, that's okay too. But I would just question, whether you want to wait longer to be that best version of yourself, to adopt that identity, to join this global community of kick-ass women who are changing the world every single day, who you will have in your corner over the next 4 years as things unfold. So put my Calendly in the chat, and then I'm happy to just stay after and say, if anyone has any questions about the Women's Leadership Challenge or anything else, I'm happy to stay on for a couple more minutes. But thank you, everyone who needs to jump. And for the women who I have already in my calendar, I'm really looking forward to connecting with you this week. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Sheba. Thanks, Sonia. Thank you, Leslie, for coming night after night and for being such a great speaker. Thank you, Dom, for being amazing. Shiba, do you have any questions that I can help answer?
Sorry, I'm driving, but no, I was just waiting for your Calendly link, and I see you just put it in, so I'm going to drop off now. But thank you so much.
Wait, hold on.
It was,
I think
and thank you, John, as well.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I think I
Yeah.
didn't copy it correctly. Hold on. This is the right link. Yesterday I put the wrong link into. That's the correct link. Yeah,
Okay.
schedule time. If you're not able to find anything because I'm traveling, so my time zones are a little weird, just let me know and we'll find a time.
Sounds good. Thank you,
Cool.
John. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. And thanks for the work that you do, Shiba. I'm looking forward to learning more about you.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let me stop the live stream. Stop the